What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be test driving my 2005 Nissan Xterra 4x4. I bought it about a year ago to use as a daily driver. Basically, I wanted a four-wheel drive that was cheap and not a shitbox, so basically no Jeeps. So I ended up with this. I found it at a Copart auction for around $2,500. Needed a fender, a bumper, and a headlight, and just kind of threw it together. I've been driving it for quite a while. It has a couple of little modifications, but nothing too crazy. Basically, aftermarket sound system and some all-terrain tires that actually came on it. I have driven a first-gen one. This is the first year of the second generation. So, I have a pretty decent ability to contrast between the two. The styling is pretty much identical across all Xterras from the very beginning through the end of the run in 2015. They have that blocky, kind of aggressive look. I mean, I dig it. It looks a little bit like, I don't know, not super mature or understated. It's definitely like kind of out there, but it's not terrible. I can totally deal with it. And, it does look kind of cool, especially in a bright color like this one, which is yellow. The interior is pretty Spartan, but has a bunch of little storage cubbies and stuff. It has two 5-volt power outlets, which is pretty nice, like cigarette lighter adapter kind of thingies. And one of them stays on even with the key off, so that's also pretty damn useful. Okay, so let's drive this thing. Like I said, the 2005 is the first year of the second generation. And that, even though you can't really tell by looking at them, was actually a massive change. The first generation rode on the older Nissan Frontier platform and used the KA24 4-cylinder and the, I don't know the engine code, 3.3, both of which were honestly pretty damn weak. Like, neither of them were exactly like all-inspiring in their power. The second generation is a modified version of the Titan platform, and you can definitely tell it feels a lot more structurally rigid. There's not as much flex in it, and that comes through from everything from like driving over bumps to like driving on the freeway. You can totally feel that the chassis is not trying to flex itself apart. The engine also is a huge difference. The most powerful engine, excepting the weird supercharged models, the most powerful naturally aspirated normal engine in the first generation was the aforementioned 3.3 V6, which made right at 200 horsepower. This generation, the standard engine, as far as I can tell, like some websites where you go to order parts ask you if it's a 4-cylinder, but I think in the United States the only engine was the 4.0 V6. The 4.0 V6 in this vehicle makes something like 270 horsepower. So, like, it's quite a difference, and it's absolutely noticeable when you're driving. I wouldn't say that this is, like, a fast vehicle or anything, but for a large-ish brick-shaped object, it'll totally get up and go. You don't have to worry merging onto the interstate or anything like that you're gonna, not be able to get up to speeds. It's fine. You'll get there. It's okay. I'm actually pretty impressed with the way it drives down the road. Like I said, the engine makes, pretty ample power. Even turning larger all-terrain tires has no issues at any speed. No issues getting up to speed and no issues traveling at freeway speeds. Like, you can set the cruise on 75 or whatever and it's totally fine with it. It doesn't seem to be struggling or always having to downshift anytime there's a slight grade. These cars are a good deal as long as you're knowledgeable and mechanically inclined, because that's the downside to these. They do have some issues. If you are me, or probably anyone really watching a YouTube channel like this, and you're into working on cars and stuff, these really aren't a big deal. It has two major issues. The first one is known on like the Xterra forums and stuff as the SMOD, the Strawberry Milkshake of Death. What this is with the automatic transmissions, they have an external transmission cooler, but they also have an internal transmission cooler that goes inside the radiator. The problem is, on the 2005 through 2008 models, the cooler inside the radiator has a tendency to leak. And that starts leaking transmission fluid into your coolant, which isn't the end of the world. Not great, but, not that big of a deal. And coolant into your transmission fluid, which is a big deal. Turns out coolant is a terrible lubricant and a terrible transmission fluid. So if you don't catch if this happens and you don't do anything about it, which you have really no way of knowing until your transmission starts dying, your transmission fills up with coolant, which is not a very good lubricant, and pretty much just dies, melts down. There's pretty much no saving it. Basically, by the time you see really any symptoms of your transmission acting weird, it already means it's pretty much screwed. That's a bad thing. The upside to this is literally all it is these two lines that go into the side of the radiator. All you have to do is loop them. If you loop them, you'll just use the external transmission cooler, completely bypass the internal one, and never have to worry about it. So that's kind of a plus. But not really a plus if you're some random person just trying to buy a car. It's a plus if you're a random car nerd who, wants to get up under there and loop some lines. Then it's like a, literally free fix that takes only a few seconds. The other thing is the catalytic converters. Again, on the 2005 through 8 models, most of this stuff, by the way, has been fixed with the 2009 facelift. They slightly changed the front grille. They added some updated, center stack radio options and stuff like that, and they appear to have addressed both of these problems. I don't think there's really any documented cases of either the catalytic converter or the transmission cooler leak on the 2009s and later, so you can avoid all of this just by buying an 09. But in the 2005 through 2008s, the primary catalytic converters, the ones that are basically mounted to the damn exhaust manifolds, tend to be garbage, and they completely just fall apart, and that'll lead to misfires, terrible fuel economy, all kinds of engine lights, no power, and if you don't address it and it starts sucking back in metallic particles into the combustion chamber, then that leads to you needing to buy a motor, which is also not super great. The upside, as long as you're not in California, is that you can buy the catalytic converters on Rock Auto for something like, I think I paid $300 including shipping for both primary cats, and then I spent 6 hours with this on the lift, cussing it and burning my hands to put them on. Not the best deal, but not the worst. Overall, I still feel like I like the car, and it's still a good deal because, number one, I have the ability to do that stuff and not super worry about it. And number two, I feel like it's about, with those two issues addressed, obviously, I feel like the early second gen Xterra competes pretty well with a similar vintage 4Runner. It makes similar power. It's a similar size, similar towing capacity. They're both truck-based. They're both actual four-wheel drive with a low-range transfer case and, all that good stuff. Just the Xterra you can find for, well, in my case, $2,500, but $4,000 or $5,000 for a nice, 05, 06, something like that with good miles. Whereas the 4Runner is going to be like seriously double that. I do feel like the 4Runner is probably a better vehicle, especially because it won't die in the same ways as the Xterra with the transmission and the catalytic converters. But at the same time, I don't feel like it's twice as good a vehicle. Overall, I feel like I made a pretty good decision. But yeah, I would maybe really check into maintenance history or something if you're thinking of buying one for like your mom or your girlfriend or something like that. If you're not willing to go in and fix the things that are like documented cases of not being great, maybe not for you. If you're willing to put a little bit of work into it, I think they're a super bargain. A large, pretty comfortable, reasonably powerful, can tow a small trailer. I think the towing capacity is like 5,000 pounds. But, if you need to tow a lawn tractor or some car parts, something like that, totally fine. Or even a lightweight race car. I'm pretty sure it could tow a Miata. I feel like it's a lot of vehicle for the money. Just definitely be aware of the issues with it. Other than that, I really like the way it drives. Well, I think that's it. This was kind of my test run. I'm going to be reviewing cars that are more fun and building hot rods and stuff like that in the future. I'm just trying to get my camera setup down and all that stuff and get more comfortable talking on camera. So I'm gonna go back to my shop and edit this and see how ridiculous it looks. Hopefully, I think it's gonna look okay. I think I've got my camera set up, I got my microphone. I think this is gonna be cool. So all right, I'll see you next time. I'm going to do a little bit of quick criticism of my video before I even make it. Let's see. First off, I really need to do some storyboarding. It is much harder than most people would think to sit here and talk to yourself for 7 to 10 minutes at a time. Like, you think, oh, I could sit there and talk about cars for hours with somebody. But without someone else keeping the conversation on track or asking questions or getting to a specific point, it's honestly exceptionally difficult to stay on track and not repeat yourself. I've got to find some way of storyboarding. The only difficult part about that is I'm driving a car at the time, so I can't exactly, like read a script or something. I'm already probably doing too many things, but at least with the GoPros, they're hands-free. I can just record everything and then edit it back. But of course, I don't want too many cuts because I'm editing the forward-facing camera with the me-facing camera together. So any massive jump cuts is going to look like I'm, skipping ahead. Like the video is just going to cut out. Not that big of a deal when it's just a person talking, but when you're going down the street, I feel like it'll be jarring. So I have to figure out some way to storyboard this so I don't sound like a repeating idiot. That aside, though, I think my camera setup is going to look pretty good on this one. I have 2 GoPro Hero 7s. I'm recording myself with a Rode Video Micro microphone. And I have even though I don't honestly feel like I really need it on this cloudy-ass day, but just in general, on my forward outside-facing GoPro, I have a polarizing filter that should keep it from being like super glary. So CPL, that's the letters I was trying to think of. Neat. So I have a CPL on that one to keep it from being excess glare and stuff like that. But yeah, I will try to learn from this one and make my next video suck less.